Start now. Shweta?
Yeah.
Manoj, are you ready?
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shweta Sharan. Good evening and welcome to BSEI's webinar, How to Make Your Child Communicate Better. So BSEI is the Bengaluru Schools Education Initiative, and it is co-founded by three parents, Manoj Telakat, Sandhya Vishwan, and me. So the BSEI is an offshoot of Bangalore Schools. This is a Facebook community that was formed in 2012 to be a support platform for parents, educators, and students. In fact, in January 2020, BSEI conducted its first event, a schools expo. We had more than 1,000 walk-ins and we saw many schools participating in this expo, as many as 23 schools and 14 other organizations. The expo had many panel discussions, educator sessions, social impact projects, and much more. Seeing as COVID has nudged us to adjust our scenarios a little, we decided to take our sessions online and start offering webinars and long distance. In fact, last weekend, we conducted a hugely successful webinar led by Sandhya Vishwan on homeschooling. The topic for today's webinar is how to make your child communicate better. This is a webinar for parents. And as you know, presentation literacy, public speaking skills, communication and confidence go a long way in shaping a person's journey in the world that we live in today. But I also believe that helping a child communicate better also develops other skills, which helps them with self-awareness, their relationships, their problem-solving capabilities, and of course, with their interactions with the world. So I now call upon Sandhya Vishwan to introduce Manoj Telakat to the group before we kickstart the seminar. If you have any questions, please do post in the chat window and we will answer once we get to the end of the session. Thank you and have a great webinar. Over to you, Sandhya.
Yeah, thank you, Shweta. Good evening, everyone. And Manoj Telakat is known to almost everybody here, I suppose, in the group or otherwise. Manoj Telakat is the CEO of Flexi Partners and Reflex Training. He has been conducting public speaking classes for over 2 decades now. And he's also reached to the tweens, the teenagers, and young adults and older adults as well. He's also director of Madpai Education Private Limited and Bengaluru Schools Education Initiatives. Without further ado, let's start, and I will hand over the spotlight to Manoj. Manoj.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Sandhya, Shweta. Great to have all of you here. We have almost 80 plus participants at this point of time, I believe. Yeah, 83 and clocking. Yeah, it's a Sunday. It's a Sunday evening, so some of them are still in the siesta. I'm hoping some of them will join as we move on. So, quick questions to the parents here. What does communication mean to you? What does communication mean to you? In a simple word, what does communication mean to you? If you can just post it on the chat window, I have access, I can see it. Can you just post your answer on what does communication mean to you? A quick word, don't write a long one, even if it is a small, quick one. Expression of emotion, Sherry says, yes. Listening, express what you feel, express, okay. Transforming, exchange of thoughts, express, interaction, wow, okay, nice. Expression of thought. So it's all about expression, messages, conveying things. Wonderful. Okay. Prem says two-way channel, mutual expressions. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's always better when it's a two-way communication. The biggest issue with an online channel is that I can only see 3 or 4 of you on the screen, and I don't know how many of you are there. So one small request is if you can just mute yourself, and we will come back to question answer session. And in case you have any questions to call up and ask, it will be great. But if you can just keep yourself muted, it will be great. We don't want to get into the muting by ourselves. So if you can just mute it, it will be great. Conveying what you want and understanding what the other person wants to say. Yes, it's a two-way communication. Srihari says body language. Okay, effective communication. Okay, multiple answers. Thank you all so much. So one of the questions that I've always been asked about whenever I'm doing sessions is in terms of what do you think communication is? How do you make somebody communicate? Yes, you are a good communicator. I can communicate well, but how do I ensure that I can ensure that somebody else communicates well? How do I ensure that my child communicates well? So that's something that I've always been asked, and I thought this is a great forum to kind of talk about this. So we're going to talk about how your child can communicate better. Sandhya, Shweta, I might need your help here in terms of keeping it muted, please. Um, just avoid the distractions in between. Thank you so much. So how do you make your child communicate better is a topic for today. So let me start with something. A very famous quote by Peter Drucker, the management guru, the guru of modern management, as they say him. The most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. The most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. Now, I think that set the context of a lot of stuff that has been discussed here. Many of you saying that. So let me start from there. Now let's understand the reality today. It's communication is an ongoing thing. It's very important every time. But today we have a very specific scenario with children and us at home. The reality of the situation is that we are logged in, right? We've been logged in. So today, complete 60 days of locked in for me. I've been home for the last 60 days, and I think that's the longest ever I've been home. Probably after the time I was crawling. I don't think I've ever been home for 60 days together ever. The summer vacations have been ruined, not just for the kids, but for the parents. Probably you had vacations planned. You had a lot of other plans also, but those vacations are completely ruined. um, they're actually more frustrated than you are. We don't realize it. Yes, they are actually more frustrated because this 2 months is what every child looks out for. The 10 months of school culminates to that 2 month of vacation, and you're waiting for it, and it's been completely ruined. Now probably when we open up, the school will also open up. So 2 months of vacation sitting inside a house is not something that you and me ever wanted. So, and we are in for a long haul. The way it is going, we really do not know when it is going to end. There are enough and more news that is coming in on when it is going to end, but still we are in for a long haul. So we need to understand this reality and approach communication slightly different is what I feel. The way we've been approaching it so far, there needs to be some bit of transition in terms of how we are going to approach it. So let me start from there. The first thing for me, as most of you said, is listening, right? Listening is the most important thing that we've all been saying. But to me, I want to put it in a slightly different way. Now, we need to start learning to listen. And that's not easy. We've been listening. We think we've been listening. We expect them to listen as well. But how do we learn listening? Now, few tips that I think is very, very important, very, very critical at this point of time is one is to pay attention to details. Do not jump into a conclusion. Do not jump what they're saying. Give them that time to communicate. Pay attention to the details whenever somebody is talking. Now, as you know, many times it is very rare that people talk. People do not want to communicate. So when they start doing it, it's very important. It's very important that you do it right the first time, because that's a time when your child is coming to you and wanting to talk. And if you don't have the time for your child, it's going to be a very, very, very difficult situation to come out of. So give them that time and do it right the first time. Be patient. I was doing another seminar the other day, and one question that came up is, how do I listen? My answer to listening is being patient. You will get your chance to talk. Most of the time we want to do, even in an adult conversation, is that we want to make our point, and we don't have the time to sit and listen to them. We are not patient on that. Here, if you are not patient, nobody is going to talk to you. They're going to attempt you once, and the second time they know that, okay, I will not be heard. Why even waste time on that? So be patient and let them tell the story. It doesn't matter how much time. Now, don't curtail time. Don't say, hey, you got 90 seconds to tell me it, or 30 seconds to tell, finish it off. No, we are not in a rat race here. This is a time when you need to give both of your ears. Now they have this famous saying, right? Why do you have two ears and one mouth? You need to listen more. That's why reason why you have 2 ears. So use the most of it. Many times what parents do is The moment the child starts talking, we are already into a problem solving mode. We are already there. They're not asking you for a problem. They're just sounding it off. Now I'm talking more from a parent child conversation perspective. You probably understand it from an adult perspective. Many times people just want to tell you something, just want you to be the shoulder. They don't want solutions. They probably have the solutions. Moment you jump into problem solving, they stop talking. So it's very important that you don't jump into the problem solving mode. You don't get into suggestion mode. You don't get into the suggestive mode. Just listen to them so that they can tell you what they want to tell you. And then they're probably better off after that. The more you listen, the more they communicate. Here, the they mean the child. The more you're ready to listen to them, the more they will be ready to communicate to you as well. Okay. So this is the first and foremost mantra of communicating better. Now, how does a child communicate when you are listening? The answer is the last line. The more you are ready to listen, the more the child is ready to communicate. Fine. Let's move on. Facilitate observation. Now, observation is something that is critical to communication. When a child doesn't observe, when the child doesn't observe, the child cannot communicate. It's very important that we facilitate that observation. How do we do that? It's very easy to say, hey, look, observe. Doesn't work that way. We are the adults in the house, and it's very important for us to kind of facilitate this whole process. You could ask leading questions. If you've gone out somewhere, you could ask a leading question of, what did you see, what did you hear? Let the child answer. Ensure that the child is answering, and please understand that the child observes everything that is happening. I have my son who talks about offers that he sees. He looks at them. He looks at various advertisements which are there, where are offers that I see. The moment I talk to him, he opens up and he wants to tell more about those things. Which shop is open or closed? Why did you think that shop was closed? And he says, hey, this is that road in Koramangala, 100 feet road. Why do you think that so many shops are closed? And he came out with a suggestion that they're digging up the road all the time. How will the shops survive here? That was an interesting observation for me also. And then I went and discussed with some of my friends who said, yes, maybe because of that. But when you have that conversation going on, it prompts them to observe more. It helps them to observe more, and they always start doing it because they know that the more they observe, there is going to be a chance of communication at home. You come back and then you discuss that. You can ask them what was written there. Did you observe what was written there? Prompts them to look at it next time when they're going. They might have missed it this time, but you have observed it. Now, the key thing here is you need to be a good observer as well. You can't just expect the child to observe and you ask a question and you have no clue on what is he talking about. So there should be cues at your end also to be observing it. And then that could lead to an open-ended discussion wherein you say, this is what I saw. He says, this is what I saw. And then you have a discussion on this. A typical example is what I just mentioned. Why are shops in a particular street closed? And then there is a discussion. You could actually lead him to observe things which are going to help him communicate better. He comes out with ideas, he comes out with thoughts, he comes out with various things which he thinks is right. You are just listening to him and you are talking with him. The finer points of observation is what makes a better communicator. It is the finer points of observation that will make him or her a better communicator. Now, that will also help you become a better listener. That will also help you become a better observer, because observation is the key to becoming a better communicator. Okay, let's move on. This is something which is very, very, very interesting. Now, this is something that many people have been talking about of late, the in between talks. Now, what is in between talks? In between talks is not when you are planned to have a discussion. This could be something that you do when you're driving. Now, that's one of my favorite places to talk to my children. So when we are on long drives, when we are going driving to a native, or when we are going on a drive, there is a constant discussion that happens. We turn off the radio. That's something that we mandatorily do. And then we talk. We talk about anything. We talk about anything, because please understand, when you're doing in between talks, you're not looking eye to eye. And that's when a lot of communication stops. When you're staring at them, when you're sitting across the table and talking, it becomes a little more formal. People do not open up when you're looking at them in their eye. You need to create an environment where they are able to talk to you without being looking at your eye. So they're very casually talking. They're looking at you, but you're not eye to eye all the time. You're looking at them, they're looking at you. You might be cooking, and while you're cooking, you're not essentially talking about the what you're cooking, what is the dish, what is being added, what is the recipe. No, you could probably be talking about what happened in school, or what do they feel about what is happening today. They might talk about what is corona. Anything, doesn't matter what, just talk, right? And anything, doesn't matter what you're doing, be cooking, walking your pet along. These are times when they open up and talk. You can talk. The best place to talk, as many of them say, is on the dinner table, because you are having another activity going on. You're eating, you're eating, you're enjoying your food, and there is a discussion that goes on together. So they always say the family that eats together stays together. A family that eats and talks together stays together. That's the difference, because that is where communication really opens up. Kids tend to open up in the middle of doing something. They don't want to restrict themselves, because they know that this is a very casual environment. My dad is comfortable, my mom is comfortable, we are having a nice time here, let me talk. Now, do not restrict them from the topics. Don't say, hey, let's not talk about it now, we will talk about it later. Or no, don't talk about this particular point. Let them just open up. How much time do you have in hand? Maybe it's okay, your dinner might get a little more extended. What is more important, your child talking or you finishing dinner and washing your plates? You can wait for it. So give them that kind of a time wherein they are able to talk to you uh, in between what you're doing. So the in between talks is a very important point to keep your child motivated to talk to you. Now, I purposefully use this word create reading. Now, what is create reading? Many of them read, right? Many of them read. It is not that you're not created an environment to read, but there is a tremendous amount of. I've been having this public speaking programs for the last month. So we started off with one program, and then I'm at around the 14th batch or something. So that's one thing that keeps coming back from parents, that how do I ensure that my kids vocabulary go, how do I ensure that my kids start reading more. So I always say that there is only two ways of doing it. One is by ensuring that your child is reading in depth. When I'm saying depth, I'm talking about any genre that the child has picked up. Go inside, read more in depth. Second is to read in width. Don't get stuck to that one genre. Ensure that they are reading in width. Now, this is for kids who are reading. What do you do with kids who don't read? I just got a message today morning from a mom who said that, okay, after you told, my kid actually has picked up 14 books till the next 14th and is planning a book reading thing. Great, wonderful. That's what we try to do for them. But in case they're not a reader, create this habit. Now, how do you create that habit? Please understand the child learns from you. If you are a reader, it's very much possible that your child is also a reader. Doesn't matter what you read. You don't need to really sit and read one of the biggest books available. Even if you're reading a newspaper, even if you're reading a periodical, but have this in front of the child. Ensure that the child sees you as a reader, and he or she is looking up to you as a role model. Now, when they're looking up to you and saying that, okay, my papa reads, my mama reads, okay, let me also pick up. How many times have you seen those very tiny toddlers who come and read a newspaper without even understanding what they're doing? They're just trying to imitate you, and they pick up from you. Ensure that your house is full of books. There is enough and more. Don't do the stinginess in books, because that's what is going to really matter to them. Buy books of different genres. They will definitely pick up one of them. You never know which one. But like how Shweta says in her reading workshop, now Shweta does amazing workshop on how to make your child a reader. Now that's something that we are actually thinking about coming up with very soon. How to make your child a reader. And then she says this, that it doesn't matter what they read. As long as they read, you should be happy. People worry that, okay, my child is 6 years old, my child is 10 years old. Is there an appropriate reading that I need to do? Yes, if there is an appropriate reading, if your child is a reader. But if your child has not even picked up reading, you should be happy with anything that the child is reading. I think that sums up in terms of how do you want to work on it. Do not worry about what or how they read. Some of the parents I've heard, seen saying, okay, read loud. I mean, it doesn't work for me. I can't read loud because the moment I read loud, I'm more interested in the pronunciations. I'm more interested in what I'm saying, who's listening to me. I want to read inside me. I am reading inside, and I'm able to grasp it better when I'm reading inside. I've seen people in the flight reading loud, and it's disturbing for me, but that's the way they love to read it. It's not loud, but it's still whispering. So each of us having the reading habit. So don't try to change that. Ensure that there are enough books in their hands. Ensure that there is enough stock of books, and ensure that there is a wide range of books. From there they can try to take them to bookstalls, try to take them to libraries, spend some time there, let them get the flavor of the book, and that's addictive. People who are readers here will know the beauty of opening up a book and getting that first smell. That's a real booster for you. Let the child get that as well. Let's move on and talk about understanding the conversational styles. Now, this is a very interesting thing that I always talk about. Now, how do you understand the conversational style of a child? Now, have you observed that, okay, your son wakes up in the morning and he's typically not that morning boy? How many of you are morning boys, or how many of you are morning girls? Many of us are not morning people, right? We don't want to wake up in the morning. We don't feel that energy. It takes us time to kind of get into that. The sun has to hit our face, and our solar power has to generate inside us before we become our own. So it takes time for some of the people, but for some others, they are amazing morning people. I know for a matter that Sandhya wakes up at 5 o'clock and she's as fresh as any day. I can't. So it's different for everybody. Now, if it's different for adults, can't it be different for children? How do you expect them to be the same 24/7? If you are different, they are different too. They have their own conversational style. The same way you talk about emotional style or intelligent style, there is something called as conversational style. What is conversational style? The style is split into two parts. One is the time. When does the child want to really talk? There are children who get up in the morning and really do not want to talk. Or there is a child who wakes up from the bed, jumps out, and wants to tell you a first story. You need to understand the time your child is ready to talk. There could be this child who's come back from school and doesn't want to talk, and the parents go behind them and asking, what happened in school? Tell me what happened in school. Tell me what happened in school. The kids gets frustrated with that. He has come back from school. He has had a heavy day. He has had a bad day probably, or he has had a very tiring day. Just give him time to relax. Let him settle down. And once he is settled down, he is in his own zone. He will talk to you. Now, how many of you would want to have a tiring day end with your boss or your spouse or your child wagging behind you and saying, hey, what happened? Why are you not looking good? What happened? Tell me. And then you're going to lose it. You're going to shout at them saying, keep quiet. Now, the child cannot tell that to you. Why? Because the child is a child after all, and it doesn't know what to say. Now, you need to understand that the child many times do not understand what to say. And that's when you need to be there. You need to give them that time to kind of calm down, understand. He will come to his zone, and then he would say, oh, I am ready to talk. And ensure, please be ready. The moment he is ready to talk, please be there. Don't run away at that time. So you need to be there when he wants to talk. And I go back to that listening part, when be patient, give him that time to settle down and talk to you. Number two, there are children who talk fast. There are children who talk slow. Don't try to change it. It's perfectly fine if somebody is talking fast or talking slow. They will figure out a way to communicate to the rest of the world as they move on. Now, you expect them to talk in a pace that you are comfortable in, it may not work out. And many parents spend a lot of energy in trying to do that. This is like changing a left-hander to a right-hander. I have friends who have been forced to change from left hand to right hand. I am probably, there might be people here who have gone through that. Don't do that. That's what they are. Similarly, there is a conversational style that they have. They are born with that. That's their wiring. That's how they are. That's how genetically they are placed. Please accept that fact. Don't try to force change it to fit into your suitability. It will not work. Some of the children want to talk long. They are long talkers. They wind around all the place before they come into that topic. And I've heard parents saying, cut it short, come to the point. He can't do that. It takes him time. He wants to tell you the whole story. And there are children who are crisp to the point, and you say the child doesn't want to talk. I ask him a question, it's a straight cut answer, a one liner. Doesn't want to talk to me. No, that's his style. Accept it as his style. Work on you, not work on him. You cannot force him to change his style to adapt to your style. There are children who hate questions. I'm not talking about the exam or they don't like to answer questions. I've heard parents who say that I asked the child what happened in school, he doesn't want to say. And then what? You take to the next level of forcing the child to talk, and the child doesn't want to talk. There are children who are waiting for questions. Ask me, I will tell you. Ask me, I will tell you. Find out which category, which conversation style is your child in, and work along with it. It is very, very important for you and the child that you understand the child's style. Now, not many people are talking about this. You will not hear about it from a lot of people. Plus, please understand, just like somebody has an emotional quotient, somebody has an intelligent quotient, there is a conversational style also that is with the child. It is just like you being a left-handed or a right-handed guy. Accept that and move on. Do not try to change the style or the time. Just because the kid has woken up and doesn't want to talk, don't go behind him and don't force him to talk. Let him be given the time. Please respect the wiring of the child. That child has that wiring because he has inherited that from you. So that X or the Y has come from you. And that wiring is that because of you. So if you don't accept it, who else is going to accept that? That's your creation. And you've created that wiring in that child. Accept that and then move on. Okay. Open communication is something that people always talk about. Now, what is open communication? Open communication to me is an environment where a child is fearless. He can come and talk to you anything. Now, we talk about a lot of problems, be it be the boys locker thing, be it be teenage suicides, be it be a lot of other stuff that we are talking about. Everything boils down to one thing, and that's open communication. If you're creating an environment in your home where the child is fearless to say anything to you without being judged, you have won the battle. You've won that battle. Now, avoid being judgmental to your child. Doesn't matter what he says. Let him communicate with you and let him be comfortable in communicating with you. Many people, as I said earlier, jump into that advisory mode. Why? Because I'm old. I've seen this world. This is something that I keep hearing. I've seen the world. I'm 45 years old. I've eaten 45 more Christmas dinners than you have done. So I know it. No, sir, you don't. You're living in a different world altogether. That child probably knows more about a lot of things that you know. Accept it. Why is the ego coming and hurting you there? Let it not hurt you. Accept the fact that your child probably knows more than you. So do not get into this advisory mode. Many times people jump into that advisory mode even before the child has spoken about it. Now, I'll tell you this is how you do it. Who has asked you? Nobody has asked you. He's just telling you a situation. Help him overcome that by facilitating. Listen to him. Let him find a solution. Don't offer a solution, because the moment you start offering a solution, every time the child is going to come to you for solutions. He is never going to be on his or her own. He or she will never be able to take a decision on his own, which also means he or she is never going to be responsible for their decision. That will still come back to you, because they will come back to you and say, Papa, Mama, you told me to do that. I did it. It went wrong. It is your problem, not mine. So how do you ensure that they take up that responsibility. Remember, with freedom comes responsibility. If you're able to drive that point at your home, give them the freedom, give them the trust, give them the transparency, but demand responsibility. When you're able to demand that responsibility from your child, it becomes a much, much, much better place to live in. Help your child develop a feelings vocabulary. This is something that me and Sandhya kept talking about because I love the way she does it in her school. I love the way she does it in her school uh, in terms of the feelings vocabulary for the children. Now, one thing that she says is when a child comes and cries, she just doesn't take the child and say, hey, it's okay, it's okay. She asks the child, why are you crying? Are you sad? Tell me that you're sad. Are you angry? Tell me that you're angry. You can't just cry and expect people to help you. Doesn't work. So if you are telling your child that, are you sad? Tell me. I can help you there. Let's talk. Let's discuss. Don't shout, because that's not going to help anybody. Are you shouting because you're angry? Then tell that you're angry. There are words to define that. That's how you create a feelings vocabulary. The child doesn't know that. I'm talking about a small child or even a big child at many times. They don't know that vocabulary. It's your responsibility to build up that responsibility. Now, how do you do that? You do it by showing also. If you are a person who shows his anger by throwing and breaking something, your child is going to do the exact same thing, because to him or her, that's anger. If you're somebody who's going to sit in that corner and cry when you're sad, the child is going to do exactly that, because that symbolizes sadness to them. But if you're able to sit and say, I am sad because of this particular reason, the child learns from you, the child works with you, and the child will be able to communicate the way you expect that communication to happen. That's how you build up a feelings vocabulary. That's something that you can really, really, really work on. And that's going to help your child be a much better person, because the child suddenly realizes that I can use words instead of actions. I don't have to hit at the wall when I'm angry. I can come and tell that I am feeling angry because of this. And then there is a discussion, and then there is a resolution. Without telling about a problem, there is no solution. And every problem in this world has a solution. How do you know it is a problem? You know it is a problem when you talk. And how do you talk? You talk when you can put that problem into words. So right from childhood, if you are able to build a feelings vocabulary for your child, the child will be able to communicate with you much better. Also understand, internalizations work very, very differently for different individuals. Every child, it works. But there are children, when you say, hey, talk about it, and then they talk about it, they feel even more bad. They may feel even more sad. But for some, when they come and talk it to you, it's over. That weight is gone from their mind, that weight is gone, and they are completely happy. Understand what works for your child. Just because it works for you doesn't mean that it will work for your child. Just because it works for your neighbor's kid or your sister's daughter doesn't mean it will work for your kid too. So figure out how comfortable your child is in, and then work on the internalizations part. Okay. Now, this is something which is a lockdown special, the bonus part of the communication series. Now, what is happening today is we are all in a situation which was never ever planned. This was never planned, right? One day you were in office, and the next day we were told that, okay, you're not going to come to office anymore, you're going to sit at home. I know some of my friends who have been working from home for ages. Even for them, this is completely news. You never expected that the four of you or the five of you or the three of you are going to be inside that small house spending 24/7 for the last 60, 65 days. And the way it is looking, it might go long. Who knows? What is happening today is there is an invasion of private spaces. You are working from your dining table, you're working from your bedroom, you're working from your drawing room, you're working from your balcony. You don't know where you're working, but you're working from everywhere. And that space also belongs to a lot of other people. And when you're working, you have the phone in your hand and you're walking down the way you would have walked in your office. Please understand you're actually invading your private spaces. They are invading your space, you are invading their space. Very, very important that you accept that fact. And that's an important part of communication, where you're able to accept the fact that yes, there is an invasion of private space. Please understand you're being heard and observed. If you are, I had an ex-boss, a good old boss, who couldn't finish a single sentence without swearing. And I'm very sure even if he's locked in inside his house, when he's talking to his subordinates, he will use those words. Please understand your child is hearing. You're not in an acoustic controlled room like how it was in your office with a cabin and nobody is hearing you, or you have an option of running to the terrace or outside and then talk about it, or get into a conference room, lock it and talk. You can't. You're essentially sitting in your dining room where everybody can see you and everybody can listen to you. Be very, very clear that you're being heard and you're being observed, and everything that is being observed is being copied. Everything that is being heard goes in here, and that comes out one day or other. So please know that you're being observed. They are seeing you more than ever. They have never seen you so much. My children have never seen me for 60 days straight. And if I ask them what is happening, they would probably say the same thing to me. They're seeing you more than ever. Now, because they're seeing you more than ever, the expectations are also very different. It could be different from different children. I felt that the smaller ones understand you a little more better, that okay, my mama is working from home, my papa is working from home, I am not supposed to disturb them much. But there also could be a child who feels that okay, she's at home 24/7. I used to get 1 hour from her earlier, why can't I get 3 hours now? So please understand, things have not changed. Just because you're at home and working, your child still deserves that time, that exclusive time which is theirs. If you're not giving it, you're not giving them justice, which in turn affects their communication. Because if you're not talking to them, they're not talking to you back. Please retain the exclusive spaces. Just because corona has come, your workstations have been taken away from you, doesn't mean that you start using your children's room and start working from them. They need their space, and nobody can understand it better than you. So if you have a workspace, use it as a workspace. If you have a personal space, use it as a personal space. If your child has a space, let them use that space. That helps them understand that there is a division in terms of work and the personal part also. The most important thing that you can do is to talk about yourself. Many of us don't do that. We expect the child to come and talk about how their school was, what happened in their school, what did the teacher do, what did their best friend do, etc., etc. But we rarely talk about ourselves. How did your day go? What happened in your day? How was your office? How was your work? How was your conference? You're not going out, right? So there's no point of talking about when I went to Bombay and when I went to Nariman Point. Doesn't happen now because you're not going. You're stuck here. So you can talk about things that are happening. You could talk about things that are worrying you. You can have your feelings vocabulary developed, and they understand that way much better. So can you talk about your own things on a regular basis? The last point that I want to make is please be conscious. Please be conscious about the entire facts that you are being observed, and they are going to pick upon you in terms of all this is happening. In nutshell, be your child's role model. The only way you can teach communication to your child is if you are communicating well. If you are able to communicate well to your child, she or he learns the importance of communication and starts communicating back to you. Don't tell them that, hey, look at this guy who's communicate well, or look at a Shah Rukh Khan, or look at a Virat Kohli. Those are all role models for a different purpose. The only role model that the child can look up and copy and work on is you when it comes to your communication. And I'm not talking about vocabulary, I'm not talking about your dialects, I'm not talking about your reading style, nothing. Are you able to have an open discussion with your child? Do you create an environment in your home wherein the child can communicate well? Are you able to give him enough and more through which he or she can communicate to you? Are you going to them to talk? Are you expecting them to come back to you and talk? And when they do that, are you listening to them? That's what I wanted to say. Be your child's role model. I will end it here. Thank you so much for being here, for being part of this webinar. I open it out to questions, any questions that you may have. I'll also have Sandhya and Shweta chip in with some of the answers. Sandhya, as you know, runs a school and works with early childhood kids. And she's also a psychologist. Shweta is a journalist who works a lot on the communication spectrum. So I'll be happy to have Sandhya and Shweta also chip in. So over to Sandhya for any questions that you might have at this point of time.
There are quite a few questions, and I hope some of them were answered in the course of the session. The first one is from Anurag Sharma. How can we develop spoken English in our children, the communication?
Multiple ways, Anurag. I feel that something that I am doing now, most of it works. The reading part works because that helps in terms of the vocabulary of the child. The other thing which I always look at is to ensure that the child speaks. No, as I was telling somebody else, we all sing, right? Is there anybody in this group who doesn't sing? Everybody sings, right? Yes or no?
They're all muted.
They're all muted, but at least the hands up, thumbs up, I can see.
Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Thumbs
yes.
up, yeah. So we all sing, but are we all singers? No, there is a difference between that I can sing and I becoming a singer. So many people who cycle, but then there are cyclists. There are so many people who swim, then there are swimmers. All of us speak, and then there are speakers. So if you need your child to become a speaker, then he or she needs to go through a proper speaking class. Some of it comes naturally to us. I take this example. I was talking to Rukia the other day, and I said, you can put a child on a cycle, a downhill, put him in, and then push him down. There is a 90% chance that the child might reach down because of the gravitational pull, because of the weight balance, your normal body balance. You might reach down without falling down. Try doing it the other way around. Try doing it uphill if you don't know cycling. How many of us can do it? That is where the expertise come in. That is where the training comes in. The best way to learn spoken English is by speaking English. And where you learn it, you learn it. There's no quick way of learning that as far as I know. Public speaking really works well. Workshops really work well, but I know a lot of people who train people on spoken English. That really works well. Now, please, just for the sake of that, don't change the language of communication at home. I am a strong believer that what you speak at home should be your mother tongue or your father tongue or whichever tongue you want to call it. Because nowadays there is, earlier mother tongue used to be the tongue that the father also spoke. Now that we have various people coming in, so one of the tongues or both the tongues. So ensure that they are, why is it important is because, see, for example, I've seen my cousins struggle when they come home or when they come to their native, they can't talk to their grandparents, uncles, because they don't know the mother tongue. And that's a communication that they need to have with their grandparents or their elders. And that can happen only if you do the mother tongue. So many people say that, okay, I tried my level best to talk English at home. Please understand, you need to be an expert in English for your child to catch up English from you. If you are not, please better send him to a coaching where he can take it. I hope I answered you, Anurag.
Okay, so next we have Prem Kumar, who asks, how can we channelize their reading? Said reading is important for communication. So how do we channelize that is the question.
By ensuring that you read. And when you're reading, ensure that you're reading in front of them. They learn from you. Now, two ways, as I said, is reading wide and reading deep. So ensure that the child has enough books in hand and not just of one genre. You have multiple genres that the child can pick up from. Now, let me ask you the same question. Would you like to have the same breakfast every day? 365 days, is it okay that I give you the same breakfast? No, you want a difference every other day or at least every second day. Reading is the same. You give them that width, they catch up to reading. You give them the depth, they stick to that. They don't know the other genre, The moment they reach the depth of what they're reading, they stop reading. So many kids I've heard read the whole of Harry Potter and never touched a book again. Possible. So the next book should be something similar. Maybe if your kid is reading a Wimpy Kid, move him to an Edith Blyton or a Geronimo Stilton or to a Roald Dahl or to a Harry Potter or to a Palagio, Graveyard Boy, 100-Year Boy. Keep them that. But importantly, you need to have that interest in ensuring that they pick up the right book. That's the only way out for him.
Okay, so Pallavi asks how to make kids open up and line up their thoughts to talk. My kid doesn't talk when we ask something. He reads lots of books, but when we ask about the gist, he goes blank. So how can we improve on that aspect, which is important for communication?
I think it's a conversational style of that kid. Is that kid always like that, or the kid has certain times? So I think it's more to do with the conversational style of the kid. You need to understand the conversational style of that kid. There could be the kid who reads that book and comes and energetically tells you that this is what happened in that book. There could be the other kid who doesn't even want to tell you because I read it for myself. Why will I come and tell you that story? Do you tell that story to the kid when you have read a book? If you are, the kid will also start doing it. But if you are not, then it's very unlikely the kid is going to open up to you. The way to do it is by being patient. Figure out which is the best time to talk to your kid about things that he wants to open up on, and then you will be able to figure it out. Is what I feel.
Yes. Okay, Sherry asks, when a 4-year-old is angry and is not able to communicate why she's angry, how do we as parents guide her?
Sandhya, you want to add to that? That's your area of expertise here.
Okay.
Beyond communication. So I think anger and
Yes.
stuff. So I can talk about the feeling vocabulary, but I think Sandhya is an expert who does that for 4-year-old kids day in and day out. Sandhya?
Okay, so yeah, to add on to what Manoj actually said earlier during the session, what we do is we help them to build up the vocabulary. The reason is we ask the child, why are you angry? But they don't understand that the emotion that they're showing is angry. So what we usually do is give them the vocabulary. We say, I see that you are angry. Okay, what is it? Sometimes a 4-year-old is too young to even tell you that could be the reason, something else. So you need to be observant. So there's a lot of communication, non-verbal and verbal coming here. You need to be observant on what happened just prior to that to kind of coax it out of the child. Oh, something fell, broke, somebody pulled it out of you. So you are verbalizing, which is how they learn the vocabulary, and you have to say the word angry. I see you are angry, and then take that on. It can be sad, it can be so many reasons, but you also need to go there to the incident prior to that, at least whatever you saw, and ask, okay, what happened before that? You say that and then ask what happened before. You'll get to know. Slowly, if you continuously or consistently do this with every aspect where emotions come into, the child will learn how to communicate that part. But it's a constant effort, and the earlier you start, the better.
Patience is the key there. I think the patience is the key there. Yes, Sandhya.
Yes. Okay. Next is also very similar. Anurag asked, when a 13-year-old is angry, how can we stop him from being angry?
I think that's not in the purview of the topic that we are saying. Angry and communication. If you're expecting the child to communicate when he is angry, then I think the way out is the feeling vocabulary, and that's something that we need to work together as a parent and the child. When you start communicating your feelings to them, they slowly start communicating it as a feeling. Otherwise, it is an anger which is shown by throwing things out or breaking something, because that's the anger that he's shown. You go back and check, how do you communicate normally when you are angry? Do you say that you are angry, or do you show that you are angry? If you're telling that you're angry, then they will also start telling you that they're angry. But I think it needs a little more in-depth understanding of the child, especially because it's a 13-year-old child. We need to understand the child a little more to kind of actually give you a one-stop answer to that.
Yeah, as an extension to that also, that is why we believe in starting young, communicating with the children when they are younger, so that when they are in their teens and they're having a lot of emotions at the same time, they will not be able to communicate when you expect them suddenly to do that. So always try to start young. Of course, in this case, we can look at another one, depends on the other aspects. Now, Ujjwal asks, my 5-year-old loves pretend play.
Pretend.
Sorry? Pretend. Okay. Pretend play. I understand it's good to develop imagination, but is it normal to do only pretend play during most of the day?
You should be lucky that your kid is ready to do pretend play. I believe you should be lucky there. Am I right, Sandhya? If your kid is able to do pretend play, that means that the child's imagination is in a different level altogether. It's just matter of time that the child also becomes creative from there. Because any child who is able to say, I mean, I've seen children who say, okay, don't give me a toy, and they figure out a toy to play with. You don't need the most expensive of the toy. A cardboard box becomes a house all of a sudden. And then they have visitors coming in. There is a shop coming in. If the child is able to do pretend play at 5 years, fantastic. Well done, Ujjwal. So just
yeah.
motivate them there. That's it.
Right. As we are on the topic of communication, that's excellent to develop vocabulary where you can help them with words, new words. Listen to them. If you can help write it down, if the child is not writing, or draw it for them, or encourage them to draw it and build up on that. A lot of skills that are even required for school will be built up there.
Okay.
Aishwarya asks, how to overcome child's shyness to speak to his teacher all his thoughts and answers.
Okay, I know there are a lot of educators here who will be a little upset if I say that. I think it's a teacher's responsibility. It is very little that a parent can do. It is very little that the children can do. I have Ashwati here giving me a thumbs up. Ashwati has been a educator, my good friend and educator for almost 20 years, Ashwati now? Yeah. So she's giving me a thumbs up, so I think I'm there. It's a teacher's responsibility. There is nothing else you can do as a parent. What is important is you go and talk to the teacher. If the child is not talking to the teacher needs to work on it, and you need to go and take it to the teacher. And it's very, very important that the child is ready to open up to the teacher as well, because that's another role model that the child looks up to all the time. It could be multiple factors, because we don't know the reason for it. Unless you speak to the teacher and the child, you will never know why. What is the answer for it?
Okay. Shubha asks how to help a 4-year-old child in expressing their unpleasant emotions in better ways to friends as well as family. I think it was covered during the session.
Yeah.
So if there are more questions on that after, you can ask. Now, this is Manoj's favorite question. Rajkumar asks how to eradicate stage fear.
Okay. The best way to eradicate stage fear is going on stage. There is no other way. The best way to learn swimming is to start swimming. The best way to learn cycling is to start cycling. There's no other way to overcome stage fear than by going on stage. But you can't just put a kid into the water and say swim. None of us learn swimming because somebody threw us into the water. You will have an eternal fear of water if somebody does that. Training is the best way. And I personally believe that stage fear is something that can be overcome if it is worked well. Public speaking workshops really help. I've been seeing it over the last 1 month that even in an online public speaking workshops, people are able to come out of it, even though it is a scenario based one and we are actually not on stage. But the very fact that people are able to kind of understand that stage fear can be overcome is a big advantage, and it's really working for us. So stage fear can be overcome if you're training them, and if you find a good coach who can train them to overcome stage fear, it can be overcome.
Yeah. So Anurag also asked a similar question, which I think is answered. If not, please put it later. Again, Nisha asks, how can we encourage reading, including long exam questions? Many times my son reads little and then assumes the remaining part, and he goes wrong with that. So how can we help?
I think Shweta is going to cover it when we do the when we plan the reading part of it. So some of it is getting covered there. But to me, it is essentially about the interest level of the child. It's about how it is put across. There are things when the child is kind of assuming, is what I understand here. The child reads little and assumes the rest of the part. That can be overcome by questioning. When you engage a child in in questioning in a way. It should not be how the question happens in school or college, because a child is going to get petrified with that. But if you get a conversation mode in that, when you get into a discussion mode with that child, you will understand that, and then you can work with the child on that. But it's good that you've actually understood some bit of it, where you're assuming that the child is reading little and assuming the rest. So one part is solved because you know the problem. You just need to figure out a solution, and one solution to me is to kind of get into conversation with the child. Shweta,
Would
Sandhya, if you want to
Shweta
add
like
something?
to, yeah, would Shweta like to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, so what was the question again, Sandhya? Because
The question is, the child reads a little bit, especially exam questions, will read the beginning a little bit and then assume the rest of it. And usually he's wrong in the summarizing the whole thing. So that reading is not.
so that I think is also something my daughter does. Sometimes I do it as well. So I think that they need to be taught how to, read till the end. My daughter's teacher uses something called chunking. So she asks to read one bit and then take the other bit, and then so it comes with practice. I think to kind of inculcate them into that habit. It is common to do that for some children. But yeah, I think you need to kind of sometimes explicitly tell them how to read till the end and, form the entire picture in their mind.
I think reading also is something that can be taught. I mean, there's not many people who actually get trained on reading. We assume that, okay, since you know English, you can read it. But reading is also something that needs some bit of a training, and that can be worked there. Yes, Sanjay.
Yeah. Srividya asks, sometimes the choice of words and expression makes the conversation sound very rude. Would you suggest making the children, change their way of talk? It comes across as rude. They might
No,
be expressing themselves.
is it actually rude, or are you presuming it to be rude? So there is a difference there, because if it is actually not rude and it is as per your definition is rude, there is a different issue. But if it is actually rude, which means that he's using bad words, or if he's using wrong words there, I wouldn't say bad words, but at least wrong words there, that's an area that really need to work on. But if it is just it's an assumption that the child is being rude, he may not be actually. He's trying to convey his thoughts, and he may not be rude there. But there are certain ways in which children speak. There's some of the children, as I said, are cut right. So I've seen many of them saying, okay, the child is so on to the point that it sounds like rude. You're not beating around the bush and you're coming to the point. It is to do with the conversational style of the child. And some of it gets worked up over a period of time as they interact with more people. But what they really look up is to you, and learn it from you, because if is that your style of communication or not? I think that's a way to look at it here.
Would Srividya just like to clarify if that's what she was asking? You can unmute yourself and quickly see her. Okay, I think the question was answered. So Ujjwal asked, my 5-year-old always prefers to be in his dad's team or grandfather's team. He prefers to follow them and wants them to win as they are boys. How to make him understand that because he's a boy doesn't mean he should follow or copy only men?
Okay, I think we're not in the preview. I mean, do you want to get into that question, Sandhya? Because I think it's way off from the topic that we are
Communication
discussing.
topic.
Yeah.
I understand where the communication is coming in, but that's a larger.
It's a much
I
larger thing. It probably needs a separate training in itself to kind of even discuss that, because it's a completely different thing. We need to talk about gender. We need to talk about a lot of other stuff there. So I think I would skip it for now, and then we will probably discuss it in
yeah,
another
okay.
session.
Okay, so Devanshi says her child is exactly like that. She usually is very talkative, but in front of others, she's shy and feels anxious to talk. So
It's a bit of a stage fear, because many times I felt that stage fear is not just the fear of stage. It's a fear of a group. It's a fear of a mob. It's a fear of a crowd. Uh, as long as you, it's I've seen I in one of my training programs, I had a CEO of a company who attended this program, and she runs a company with around 2,000 people, and she was saying that I don't know if she's attending this program or her kids are attending this program. She said, I'm okay talking in front of my company people, but I have a problem when strangers are there. So you're talking about a CEO of a 2,000 employee organization, and here we are talking about a child. So that apprehension is always there, and that can be overcome only by training. You can't just put the child. This is like this, as I said again. Go back to the comparison of swimming. Just by throwing them into the water, they can't swim. They need training here, and that's what a good program on a public speaking or can help them with.
Okay. So Naveen asks, when a child commits a mistake and we as a parent are trying to talk to him or her, and the child is not ready to communicate at that time, is not ready for a discussion, then how do we handle such a situation?
Wait for the child to be opened up, because I realized it in a hard way, wherein I realized my son doesn't want to talk when he's back from school. So he's a little upset. He comes in crying, and then I ask him, why are you crying? And he doesn't want to talk. And I get petrified because the child is crying and doesn't want to talk. What do? You're worried that something has happened. You think about all insane possibilities of why the child is crying. And then I figured out that he needs his time to settle down. After half an hour, 1 hour, he calls me and says, this is what happened to me. And he just wants me to hear it out, and then he's done. He has found a way to cope up with that, to kind of understand that, but he needs that time to settle down and do that. So give that time to the child. As I said, maybe the child needs time, or maybe the style of the child, the conversation of the child, style of the child is what matters. You can't force it out of a child. You can't just hold the child, arm twist the child and say, tell me right now. You can't do that. It will not work. It will work against you. So don't do that. Give the time to the child so that he can do that and then say.
Okay. So Rajkumar asks how to communicate to a child so that they start obeying the rules that we have set, the boundaries of the rules. Can we speak to them?
How to make child obey the rules? I mean, it depends on what rules are you setting.
So how do you communicate in such a way that they will listen?
If it is a rule in home, I think it should be a rule for all. If you say that, okay, 10:30 is lights out, it should be 10:30 for everyone. You can't have 10 o'clock for you, 10:30 for me, 11 o'clock for somebody else, 12 o'clock for somebody else. So when you're setting rules, please understand rules are for everybody. Or you need to have a clear-cut definition of what these rules are. I've never believed in forcing rules on anybody. It's always important that they understand it. So instead of calling it rules, I would rather call it a pattern of behavior or something like that. Don't call it a rule, because rule to me is somewhere a negative word. A law, you can't break it, you can't bend it. So that's why they try to do that. And when you put it as a rule to them that it's sacrosanct, you can't break it, that's when they want to do it. Please remember, we also were kids at one point of time. How many rules did we follow? The first thing that we wanted to do was to break that rule. Somebody says, okay, you can't eat the chewing gum, you figure out a way to eat that chewing gum. The neighbor's mango always tasted better than your mango at home. So that's the problem with rules always. And if you want to add to that, please feel free to that.
Yeah. So what we do at school also is the process of setting the rule also, we involve the child in it. So it does seem to them like they've formed the rule. So when it's their own rule, even if they break it, we can fix a consequence at that point of time. So try to involve, again, it comes to communication on how you communicate with the child. You need to get them involved in setting the rules or the boundaries. Boundary would be a better word, so that they also understand it is important. Rules are important, I agree as a parent, but involve them in forming the rules. So talk to them, discuss to them, see, this is my fear factor, or this is my concern. So we need to set a rule for that. Okay. Let's say sleeping, since he said that, if you don't sleep on time, I'm not able to get you up. It's a little difficult for you to wake up in the morning, and I'm also finding it hard. I'm doing my chores and I'm trying to come and wake you. It's getting hard for all of us. Now, what can we do so that you are up early in the morning? So work backwards, fix it up. So the child themselves will come probably, oh, let me go to bed at 10 o'clock. And then you fix it up and you can start off. So try to get them involved in part of that. Okay, going on, there were a few questions similar to the one that we answered. I can't see. Yeah, there were a few questions similar to the child is talkative and open in their smaller circles, but not in the with strangers. Now,
We've
Sheeta
answered
asks,
most of that. Yeah.
yes, yes. So I'm not reading all of those. Sheeta asks, how can we help a child to get out of his or her inhibitions?
What kind of inhibitions are we talking about, Sandhya? Any?
No clue here, but if Sheeta would like to unmute herself and probably give us a little more understanding on what it is.
Because it's a large word, right?
Yeah, it
a
could be for
very
many things.
yeah.
And it could be also very similar to the previous one, that
Correct.
not speaking.
Correct. If it is not able to speak out, or if there is a fear, there are ways to get rid of it. Yes. Can we move
Okay,
on?
this is an interesting question from Kanupriya. So I understand that child should not be fearful to talk to parents, I'm assuming, but at times, very rarely, when a parent loses it, how do I make up for it so that it does not hamper further communication? I don't want my child to fear me. It does happen, right?
Yeah. So
Once you just
it's very
break out.
yeah, very easy to say that okay, you should not lose it because we are human beings and not robots. So very possible. I think the first thing to start doing there is to say sorry. It starts from there. The communication starts from there, that I am sorry I did that, and I will try my level best that it doesn't happen again. That gives a comfort to the child. Never ever try to cover it up. Most of the times people try to cover it up saying that I am old, so I have the rights to shout at you. You can't do that because you are young. Never do that. So if you've done it, and you now in this case, definitely I feel that she is also um, accepting the fact that she should not be doing it. That acceptance is the first thing, and then communicate to the child that I am sorry, and try to work on that. So I think the child understands that yes, I can make a mistake, you can make a mistake too. So don't be hypocritical. That's the only thing there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Nitya Bansal asks, I understand the parent and the child have a very different conversational style. Now, how do we sync that?
Obviously, it's like fingerprints, right? We all have our own this thing. What is important is that do you understand your child's conversational style? Please don't try to sync his or her style to your style. You cannot do that, and you are not going to change your conversational style either. It is very important that you understand the conversational style of your child, and then you adapt to it. Who's the elder one here, you or her or him? You. So you are the best person to kind of work around that and not expect the child to work around your style. Yeah, I am moody in the morning, so you better be prepared. Can't be the thing, that message that you give to your child. So please, I mean, give the child the benefit and work with his or her style.
So Natasha, she had to leave, I think, but she has asked how getting a teenager to talk is my biggest challenge. So please advise.
Getting a teenager to talk,
Talk.
I believe yeah, I mean, yeah, it could be various reasons why the child doesn't talk, but I have seen during the public speaking programs that a lot of children actually open up and say that now I know how to talk, I can talk. And that's a big revelation to a lot of kids, that there is a way to talk also, and now that I know how to talk, I'm more comfortable in talking. So it could be a lot of that challenges also, that the kid doesn't know how to talk. So once you know how to talk, it's easier to talk. So that's one thing that you can do. The other thing that you can do is you keep talking, so that there's always a constant conversation going on between you and the child, and that way the child definitely picks up.
Okay. Okay, so this question, I think should probably, I should answer, or it's something more specific and individual. I'm just going to rush through it because that's not in the purview of this. My daughter is Sushma. My daughter is 2 years old. She communicates only by her gestures and actions, but doesn't prefer to open her mouth and talk. I wonder if she's preferring actions over talks, and is this any speech delay? So I'll have to take this, and I have to say, Sushma, unless I know more details and other aspects which I can ask you, you can probably get in touch with me, or if it's Manoj, and then I can probably help you to see if it is a day or not. Right? A lot of this thing feedback on how informative the session was. Soumya says, asks how to improve the communication or make a healthier communication between siblings. They don't talk much to each other at times. And another query is they don't talk in the mother tongue, though we talk in mother tongue at home. So the main question is improve communication or make a healthier communication between siblings. They're only talking in, I'm not talking in mother tongue with the siblings, it's okay.
Okay, do they talk at all, or they do not talk at all? If they're talking, it's okay.
They don't
talk much.
They don't talk much. Okay. So what kind of a communication happens between them? Is there a is it purely business?
Only during playtime, that too rare, very rare.
So one thing which I've seen is that there are not many common things to talk. So what is there to talk? So once you have common things to talk, so similarly what I said is the observation part. So since you have two kids, and when we are traveling with them, you come back and then you have an open discussion happening there. Then they tend to open up. What typically happens is that most of them have different, just because they are siblings doesn't mean that they have the same interest or the same styles. They might be reading different books, they might be reading different movies. I've seen kids who say, hey, you are a DC person, I'm an Avenger person, I can't talk to you. So it could be as silly as that, as simple as that. But then you are the person in between, and you need to create that bridge by creating topics which are of generic interest, which is of interest to both of them, because then they start picking up that conversation. And I don't think many siblings are best friends. That's a whole wrong concept. I can see siblings sitting here, they're not the best friends. It's just a concept that my sibling is my best friend. The moment you're out of that house, you have best friends to whom they talk, so which is okay. It's a working relationship, as long as they're not fighting on a daily basis. You shouldn't be really worried about it. As long as the conversation is not unhealthy conversation, you shouldn't be really working about it. But how do you work on it is by being the bridge and creating that open conversations which is on common topics that they can discuss, and create that thing. Don't expect them to create it, because then it becomes somebody's responsibility. When you take that responsibility and saying that in between talks, you are in a dinner plate, or you call them to come and help you in the kitchen, and you generally start a conversation, both of them pick up. And that's how it can work. But it takes time. It's not an easy solution to kind of do it.
Many parents here might be waiting to adopt your children, Soumya, because during the lockdown especially, we're like, will you please enough? Because there's usually so much talking that happens that it is crazy. Okay. So Anupama, how do we know if the child is able to understand what he's reading? So comprehension.
Conversations really help there. Conversation really help. I'm not a fan of question answer session, that every time the child reads the book there is a question answer session followed by it, because that stops the child from reading. But a conversation on that book is always going to help, in terms of, okay, tell me how was that book, or what is the name of. Don't make it sound like a question answer session. A good discussion on that book always helps the child to open up and then talk about it, is what I felt.
Okay, I don't know the name here. It says Glaze Modular. How to motivate children to write?
Okay, by making them write. There's no other way to this. I know Shweta works on this a lot, but when your child is reading, it's very easy for them to make them work. Like Sandhya earlier said, if the child is doing things, what did we call that, Sandhya? What activities are those? When the child is imagining and doing things?
Or pretend play.
Pretend play. When the child is doing pretend play, ask them to put those thoughts in a paper and start slow. Many people say, okay, I want you to write 200 words today. Doesn't work. If the child is writing 20 words, be more than happy about it, and then build it up from there. Don't give them targets. Don't give them targets that, okay, you finished this book, I want you to write a summary of that book. The child will write it, but it is force writing. The third day, the child will stop reading also, because why? If I read, I have to write. So might as well avoid the reading. If I pretend play, I have to write, so I might as well not play at all. So writing should be something that comes naturally, and you can only give them cues. You cannot force them to kind of write it. What I feel.
Prem Kumar asks, is it okay to ask the child, why are you angry? Or do you suggest that we talk to them as parents? We talk to them generally and then get them to tell why you are angry. Like, I understand, maybe
The
give them
feelings
the
you carry.
space.
Yes.
So the
No,
space.
as a parent, you
It depends
understand.
on the child.
Yeah, as a parent, you understand if the child is angry, sad, or what. You will definitely understand, and you know that the child is angry. And the best way to say is that I know you are angry. You want to talk about it. So that's the best way to put it across. Don't ask them, are you angry? Because as a parent, you're expected to know they're angry or not. You will always be able to gauge it also. But it's important that you start making them realize that they can put it on words, and then you will be able to listen to them. So I know that you are angry. Do you want to talk about it? Or can we talk about it?
Yeah, okay. And just to add on to that, each child is also very different. Some of them prefer the calming session first before being able to talk about the reason. And just like you said about, I think one of the points that you said was very similar. Some of them want to address the issue immediately.
Correct.
That you're angry, and we asked
So we
directly
spoke
what
about
it
it.
is. And
We spoke
then,
about it that
yes,
everybody is
that was
different. You
fine.
need to understand your style of the child.
Very
But
good.
to answer to Prem's specific question, how do you put it across? I believe the best way to
Depends
put it
on the
across is
child.
that I know that you are angry. Can we talk about it? Or when do you want to
Yes.
talk about it? Whichever way it is.
Okay. So Anu asked, I think this was covered. You can correct us if it's not covered yet. When you are wrong and the child is in the right, how do you handle the situation? Not acknowledging will be an issue, and how do you handle this communication gap appropriately? I think we answered that
Yes.
already. Very similar questions. Okay, so Kumar asked, how do you make the child proactive instead of reactive?
In communication, is that the question, or generic
Uh,
in terms of?
it is a general question, but then I think we can answer it based on communication instead of maybe a conversation. How do you make them proactive on the conversation instead of just
You
reacting to
can't.
what?
I personally believe that each of us have our own styles. So there are child, like just how Sandhya said now, there is a child who wants that answer right away, but there is a child who wants the answer much later. So that's all part of the style, the conversational style of the child. If he's a reactive child, there is no harm in being a reactive child. Why do you want to change that child to be a proactive child? It's your need, not the child's need. Child is perfectly fine being that reactive child, which is fine, which is perfectly fine. There is a proactive child, which is also perfectly fine. So don't try to change the style of the child because that suits you. So that's what I think.
You might need to help the child, even if it's reactive and you're letting them. What is the appropriate way to react is what you probably need to
That's
help
different.
with.
Yes.
Don't change the style, but help them with tools
Either way.
and
So
cues
even
of
if it
what
is a
they need.
proactive child or a reactive child, the way, the methodology needs to be helped with, but not the style.
Ashwini asks, I'm not very sure of the age of the child and in what context. It is how to deal with an emotionally sensitive child. If
But I think
Ashwini
this
can
again may not come into the context
yeah,
of
that's
what
what.
we
So
are
I'm not
talking. So I
very
don't want to
communication.
mix up the communication part. This is a
Okay.
completely different topic. Unless you know the child,
Right.
very difficult to
Correct.
deal that.
Sherry asks, is scribbling over walls by children a form of communication, and are they trying to convey a message? I personally feel it's a way of seeking attention in an indirect way, friendly advice. So
You should be very happy.
communication, if it is the
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah, you should be very happy the child is scribbling because the child is communicating. The child is learning how to communicate. Some of the parents have this issue, okay, my wall is getting damaged. So people say, okay, why don't you put a newspaper there? But I still say, what is more important, your child or the wall? If you think that the child is more important, let them scribble. It's perfectly fine. You might need a better paint every year, but it's still worth it. Yes, the child is trying to not communicate to you, but the child is definitely trying to communicate with himself.
Yeah, and or you could get a roll paper on the wall also.
So that's the secondary part I said. You can do that, but it depends. The moment you put a roll paper, the child says, hey, I don't want to write here.
Okay. Archana asked, when is the right time to read a book or an article to the kids? Should we have a schedule or a specific time?
When your child is ready to listen to a book or an article. It's a child's time, not because you are free. I am free in the evening, so I'll read you a book right now. The child doesn't want to listen to that book that time. So it is about when, and you will definitely see the child bringing, if you are a parent who's reading out to the child, you will see the child bringing that book and saying, hey, can you read this for me? And that's the best time. Keep everything aside, read that book for the child.
Also, I think scheduling does help in the sense that every night before we sleep, we read a book. So that's become a habit. So that's not just a good habit that we both do, but it's also sort of a wind down time to sleep. So it's like a cue in a sense. So schedule does help for some children. But like Manoj says, yeah, you should follow their lead in a sense and do what they are telling you to do, like, in terms of reading. But schedules really help my daughter. Yeah.
It's again child
So,
specific. Yeah.
So Soumya asks, the children are shouting because that similar behavior is being modeled by the grandparents, and the children also shout. So her question is how to make the grandparent understand that they're sending out wrong signals, because there's communication there. The parents are fine, but how do we?
We might have to do a session, especially with the lockdown. We might have to do a session on how to make your grandparents communicate better, because I keep asking my dad that when I was a kid and I asked you for a chocolate, you never gave me. My son asks you for a chocolate, you give him 5. It's so unfair. And he says you will understand it only when you become a grandfather. So I think I'll have to respect that because he's my dad. So I respect that there. But yeah, you need to talk to your grandparents, I mean your parents, and say what is right and what is wrong, because the child is yours. And there needs to be certain rules that are set there, that the child is observing and learning, and that has to be set as a rule at home. And it is not okay just because they are grandparents doesn't give them the right to spoil your child. I'm spoiling in the child in a different context, I'm saying, but yeah, there needs to be rules because they need to understand the child is looking up to them and learning wrong things. That it is not just grandparent, it could be anybody for that matter. Your child is your property, your responsibility. You need to have the first right there.
Okay. So Shubha asked, what would be the reason for a child interfering when adults would talk? How do we help the children in filtering their vocabulary? Suddenly they speak unnecessary words which they've heard somewhere. Should we correct them then, or should we just ignore it?
Never ignore, because when they feel that is okay to do that, they will continue to do that. So I never say ignore it, because many parents kind of try to brush it under the carpet and hope that nobody else has heard it. But the child has heard it, child has learned it, and the child is going to use it every time he gets an opportunity. So never ignore, but it's important that you don't scream at the child or shout at a child. You need to have a child time where you're able to have an open discussion with that child and say what is right and what is wrong and what is your logic behind it. And you need to make the child understand. But please don't ignore that.
Okay, so Ashwini has clarified, she had asked before about the emotionally sensitive child. The child is 8 years old, and if the adult slightly raises her voice also, the child gets upset. She's shouting, and why are you shouting at me? And she cries. So that was where the communication, is there a difference? What the child requires and what the parent is giving might be too different, not in sync, is what I understand. So the question is, when she even raises her voice a little bit, the 8-year-old is crying and asking, why are you shouting at me? So she is emotionally sensitive child. So any answers for that?
Sorry, I didn't get that question. You broke off in between.
Oh, okay, sorry. So she says this was the earlier question about the emotionally sensitive child. The child is 8 years old, and anytime the parent even raises their voice, the child starts crying and saying that, why are you shouting at me? So what I understand is the communication aspect is probably
Yes,
not in.
yes, you need to understand how to communicate to your child. The child doesn't like to be shouted at. So what is a better way of communicating with the child? It's very clearly told by the child that please don't shout at me. That's a message that the child is giving. So that the only person who can work on that is you. So please don't shout at the child. And how do you ensure that the message is passed is by understanding the child's conversational style. What does a child like to listen? How can the child understand it better? And then you working from that.
Okay, I think I've missed. Shweta, have I missed any questions? I think we've covered all of it.
Okay,
Almost
I
all.
see a
Some were
question. I think
repeats.
Shubha is saying that we didn't answer a specific question, which
Okay,
is
which one? Then I am
what
not.
about kid interfering during the elders'
It's a
talk?
similar question. Yes, we
No,
had.
no. I think
asked.
she had asked that question. We didn't cover it. She's just asked it again. So I think it. I don't think it's okay for the child to interfere when the adult is talking. That's my personal view. It again depends on what you're talking. Okay, so if there is some serious talk that is going on, and then you don't want the child to be interfering there needs to be that discussion with the child on why he shouldn't be there, and that's an open discussion that is to be there. It is not always okay that the child interferes in what you say. I've seen that houses that okay, the child is treated as a man in the house and is allowed to sit in every discussion and talk about it, which I don't think is right. It's not age appropriate. So some of them think okay, the child is 4 years old and he can already talk things. So no, I don't think it's right. But how do you put it across is very, very different. I can't. It's on how your house works, how your communication style works. But what I definitely feel is that you need to communicate to the child on what is okay and what is not okay, and that differentiation should be clearly categorized and communicated to the child. How you communicate is what we spoke about earlier.
Okay, I think we have come to the end, and a lot of thanks and feedback on how interactive the session was. There are quite a few names if I have to take the names. So yeah, we'll look through that.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for being so patient and coming in on a Sunday and being with us. Yes, Manoj.
So some of the questions came across in terms of the workshops and stuff. So what I was thinking of doing is, since I have the registered mail IDs, all of them, I'll probably send them what is covered in that, and they can always connect back with me personally in terms of understanding how it works or will it benefit them, etc. So I'll be more than happy to kind of do that. So I'll send you the details of the workshops that are happening currently, and we will also keep you posted on the new workshops that are coming up. So one thing that we are really seriously thinking about is the reading workshop, which just came up. So we'll work on that and then come back to you. But thank you so much for being here on behalf of Bengaluru Schools Education Initiatives, BSEI, and Bangalore Schools Group. Thank you each and every one. It's great to see some of my good old friends who are probably seeing me in action for the first time. Rakesh, I can see. Prem, I can see. Ashwati, I can see. Some of you are here. Thank you so much for being here. And my partners in crime, Sandhya and Shweta. This wouldn't have happened without you. I don't know if Premjit is around, my technical.
No, he left.
Support.
He left.
Yeah. So Premjit is the support technical person. So
we have a lot of Bangalore schools regulars as well.
Yes, a lot of our members from Bangalore schools also.
See you all.
Sandhya,
okay. So Sushma's query was okay. Oh yes, wait, let me just check. There was another query. I think I missed it. And
did we answer Pratham's question? We did.
Some of were general, so I have not been able to. Let me just see.
Oh, I think he sent it to me privately. I don't know if he meant to send it to me privately. Pratham has sent me a question.
Okay.
You want to ask that? I don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just message him. And,
yes, he's asked again. Pratham, my son never gives his opinions. He simply says, "Papa, you are right." That bothers him. Does he really mean it? That bothers Pratham.
Yeah. So the conversation really helps there in understanding. So what I would typically do is, okay, now that you are saying I am right, how am I right? Can you tell me how am I right, or what do you think about it? That's a conversation starter for that. Once you ask that question, the child will have to answer, and that way you will know if he actually means it or not. Because most of the times he's just avoiding that scenario. So maybe start a conversation on, now that you're saying I'm right, explain to me how am I right, or what do you think about it. Start a conversation on that, and then you will get your answer to that. So asking the why is the best way to kind of figure it out. Pratham, I hope I have answered.
So Sushma's question was actually specifically child development regarding the speech. I think Sushma will have to get in touch with me personally. We have Manoj's email ID and phone number here. If you could get in touch with him, he'll give you my details as well, because there would be certain specific questions I will have to ask you to be able to gauge what the actual issue is. It probably isn't an issue because she's only 2 years old, and it's too early to say speech delay. But unless I ask you other questions, I won't be able to.
I think we discussed that answer. We discussed that answer when
Yes.
it came
So
up.
I said, ask me personally, so that is why it came.
Okay, perfect.
You'll have to get in touch with.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining in, all of you. Anything else from Sandhya or Shweta from your side?
Shweta? I've been doing a lot
Shweta
of
is the founder of Bangalore Schools, so she is the reason that we are all here today. So Shweta, any last words from you?
last
So I
words.
actually
For the
have
session.
to, yeah, well, always Manoj talks about the 5 pillars of BSEI, but I am going to say that the Bangalore Schools stands on 3 pillars, which is Manoj, Sandhya, and me. So it's not just me, it wouldn't have grown without you two. So as far as I'm concerned, all 3 of us make this group what it is. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Sandhya, anything?
Oh, I said my thanks, and yes, I tried to help. As Shweta said, the 3 of us try to help as much as possible. That platform is for parents also.
Okay. So we have another 5-10 minutes. If any of the participants wants to unmute and just say anything, I'll be more than happy, because this is a great opportunity to connect. Any of you want to share anything here? I can see only very few in the video, so I can't see who all are there. So if anybody wants to say anything, it will be great.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Definitely. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to talk in such a platform. It's very nice. It was a nice experience, and especially just being in the teaching field and interacting for more than 2 decades with different parents. I just want to just remind the parents or just a thing. Parenting is not a there is no shortcut for successful parenting. It takes time, and first thing is that what we generally observe is different from our parents generation to our generation. Just it is more competition involved. Who is the better parent? So just take it we have to take that question out of our mind. It's an unnecessary thing. Simply we are participating in an unwanted race. Actually, uh, just we are all experts by ourselves as parents. And actually, what is it? Just what I feel most of the times is just our children directly just get the impact, and they try to believe what we say, what we behave, or what we believe, or what we inculcate in them. That's the easy thing. So just slow down. Whenever we beat the parents, we say just slow down. It takes time. Just like a 2-year-old child. My son, up to 3 years, he was not at all interested in speaking. He will say whatever he need. That's all, nothing else. But my daughter started speaking complete sentences before she was 1.5 years. So, like Manoj
Each
said,
child is
it's different from child to child.
Each
Child to
child is-
child. It's not no need to worry. Definitely it's not going to be any speech problem or anything. Just give her or him time.
Thank you, Ashwati. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No, I don't see anybody else. So maybe it's time to wind up. Sandhya, Shweta, all of you, we still have a lot of participants still in the session. So thank you all so much for giving your 90 minutes today, joining us and being part of this journey together with us. We hope to see you in the next event, and I hope it's going to come soon. I hope I've done justice to the expectations that Sandhya and Shweta and the group had set on me. I definitely look forward to more interactions with all of you. Thank you so much and good night. Thank you from our side.
Bye.